So I would like to call the meeting to, first agenda is to questions and comments from the public. I see we do have a few people. Maybe it's the hand feature, or if you're interested in asking, recognize you. Anyone have any questions over there?
Here goes.
Your hand raised.
Oh, does he?
And
Oh, I did see the little hand.
shows up on.
Okay. You just cue me. Okay. And welcome. Can you hear Peter?
Okay, yeah. So there was much discussion at the last meeting, regarding segment 6, the segment that goes by the Marathon School. And discussion was around whether or not that those funds should be spent. There's a question as to whether the trail will ever even go by that area. That's part of the Hayden Row section, which is certainly controversial. So good question as to whether any money should get spent at all. But I would also like to add that if any money is to be spent, there's currently $112,000 from the state and $28,000 from Hopkinton. So $140,000 for that engineering. Meanwhile, the Upper Charles Trail Committee just submitted to the CPC a engineering study for segment 1 for $48,000. And I would suggest that whatever work needs to be done on segment 6, as far as any preliminary engineering, and as I say, I don't think it should be done at all, but if it is to be done, it certainly should be capped at that $48,000 or less. And that's my only comment.
Okay, so that's interesting. I think I will, Dave, speak to that first, because we have talked about this in length, and it seems to keeps coming up, but maybe we can clarify it in a different way. But Dave, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, prior to that, we're not seeing a video feed
Right.
of the meeting. I'm just wondering, did somebody, officially start the meeting with the little pad on the table?
On the,
Like, did we actually start on the
Yeah, we
Google?
started the meeting. We opened the
Yeah.
meeting a few minutes ago officially.
Is
so
there a
nothing on the
video?
iPad. Yeah.
Is there a video little camera button on the pad that might be clicked off?
There's a video button. When I push it, nothing happens.
It's always something.
Can
It's always
It's gonna be
something.
an early night.
It could be if the camera's offline.
We had,
But you can hear us?
yes, we can hear it.
Yeah, we can hear.
All
And I
right.
apologize. We had IT check the thing at 5:00 and everything was working fine. So, but to answer the question, I believe, I'm not sure the answer I provide might be what was asked. The grant application was submitted with a scope of work, with a design scope of work, in a matching fund from the town for, I believe, the CPC. No, we're not even using, I don't think, CPC funds for the match. We're using, I think, Upper Charles and possibly town funds for that match. So I think, just to clarify, I think where the funding is coming from, 112 is the actual grant. And the rest were funds, I believe, they're not coming from CPC. That I know for a fact. You'd have to forgive me for the not quite remembering where the 28,000 comes from. in the fund.
Peter, can you clarify where you think what the 28,000 is that you're referring to?
Well, that's what's listed in the grant.
Right.
What the state indicates is that the town is paying 28,000. It doesn't say where it's coming from. It's just coming from the town of Hopkinton. I think Dave's correct that it's not coming from CPA funds.
Right.
My concern is we're spending $140,000 in engineering of a trail that's likely never to happen, or at least is certainly very controversial. And the Upper Charles Trail Committee has just submitted an application for what seems to be similar type engineering work for $48,000. It would seem to me that you wouldn't do any more detailed analysis of this segment 6, which may never happen, than you would do of segment 1, which seems to be a section that people are generally in agreement on. It just seems that $140,000 is way too much money.
Okay, thank you for your
Eric,
opinion.
Ask a question of Dave.
Yes,
Dave, is the scope of work between the two the same? I mean, it would have to be different to have that kind of disparity, right? Is it the same? I think it's roughly the same, I don't know, roughly the same distance but Dave, can you speak to that, the scope of work between the two?
Without knowing beforehand, no.
Okay, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm just curious, the length and the type of engineering, sorry.
Yeah, I can
Fine.
research it and compare the two different scopes and the two different costs and as many different metrics as possible, and report back to the committee on that. The different scope items, the length of what's being evaluated. The segment 1, Jane, is the CPC request this year the entire length of segment 1, or just from the park to Legacy Farm North? Or did it continue all the way
I
to?
believe, I don't believe it's the whole section, no.
Right. So, I mean,
But Matt isn't
No.
here. Matt could not be here, so that might be a good question for Matt.
Yeah, I mean,
next
I
meeting, our
can
next
answer that.
meeting.
I can answer the question. I need to have the two scopes and compare them and look at them. There's probably different
Correct.
lengths. There's different scope items. There may be additional information already known for one segment that's not for the other. But I do think the one thing one difference between the two is segment 1 is a little more, although it hasn't been evaluated engineering wise, where it's going to go is set pretty much already. Whereas the parcel that we're looking at for the grant is to identify as many different alternatives as possible through that parcel and on that parcel. So it's a larger kind of scope of work that's not really being put into the segment 1 study.
Correct.
So more than that, I'd let me, if you'd give me a chance to compare the scopes and
Okay.
compare the graphics, and I can get back to the committee on that.
Sure.
And you,
Okay,
Pete.
thank you. Any other comments from the public? Do you see any other hands out there? Okay,
Another question. Could we get a quick debrief of the town meeting that happened in lieu of our last meeting? Did anything come up from that meeting, or?
What town?
There was, the committee lead chairs, you met with the town manager, I think?
oh, the hands-on
We
deck.
can't, yeah. Did anything come of that
It was
meeting?
I thought it was very well attended and very informative. Maybe Elaine could briefly speak to that.
I think you could view it on HCAM and,
Well, I mean, I was wondering if they could give me the highlights. If there's nothing relevant or salient, we can move on. I was just curious.
it was nothing related to Upper Charles
Okay,
Trail.
okay.
Yeah,
That's a
thank you.
good answer.
We had no
That's all I was
questions.
looking for.
We had no questions or comments
Thank
from
you.
the public.
Perfect.
on Our committee,
Thank you.
but there was it was well attended and a lot of good stuff. Okay, any other questions from the public? Okay, moving on. So the next item is to follow up with Michelle and Dave in regards to the public comments requests that we've had. And who would like to go first? Dave or Michelle? Dave?
Let Dave go
Yeah,
first.
I was here tonight to answer that, Jane. If everybody recalls, we did send out an FAQ. What it did was, kind of combine all the common questions, most of the common questions. That FAQ was sent out. There was, I think, 9 questions on that FAQ. You know, ranging from mostly the questions like Hayden Row question. There was concerns with the crossings at Hayden Row, the alignment of Hayden Row, questions about trails within the Irvin and Tadaro properties. That went out and that was posted in, that was made available to the public and to the committee. There were another list of questions that were more or less not related to those common questions that we were working on. And I think, I'm not sure if it's Peter or Scott or whoever it was who has brought this up again. Michelle and I kind of researched what happened to that list, and we had started compiling a response to those questions, and we found the document again, and there's 36 questions that we already have answers to, and there's about 13 more that we have draft answers to. Neither one of us are exactly sure why that didn't move forward. And that's really the only answer I have at the moment, other than we've started working on it again to finalize it. It'll probably be about 14 or 15 pages long. And we'll get that out and present that to the board, hopefully at your next meeting. As I said, most of the work has been done. There's been 36 questions that have been answered or emails that have been answered, and about 12 or 14 other questions that we already have draft answers to, but there's a coordination between, Michelle and myself and the engineers, town hall, and other departments where required, some public safety, some DPW. So we are, again, there is a document out there. It's a work in progress. It's probably 80% done. I think maybe after the April workshop and then the start of other stuff, it just I guess got lost, and I apologize for that. But
Okay, so, did you have anything to add to that, Michelle?
No, that's basically it. I mean, I guess.
Working on it. It's work in progress, and hopefully we'll get some things by the next meeting. Okay, thank you.
Through the chair.
Yes,
I think also, Michelle, you've uploaded a lot of feedback as well, right? Haven't you?
yes.
So you might want to make the public aware of, it might be a little bit in the dark corners. We'll talk about that in a few minutes of the website, but I think there's some more information that you've released, correct?
No. I'd have to go look at what's on the
Over the last
website.
week or so, I thought.
I think they were still working on it. and
Oh, that hasn't been
it was-
posted yet.
It wasn't.
Okay, my bad, sorry.
Nothing else is going
So it's
on.
very close.
Somehow.
It's very close. I guess we just want to let people know that it was out there and it's being worked on, and this is volume that's
Right.
out there, but it's just not quite there.
Point out is, as Dave mentioned, when we got all the feedback, we put it into categories, because some people asked the same question, not exactly the same way, but there was no point in answering 10 questions that were all basically asking the same thing. So a lot of the work was compiling them into categories and things like that. So.
We appreciate that work.
Two hands raised, Dave and Amy Groves.
Okay, we'll take Dave first because it might be a follow-up to Michelle's.
yeah, I
And
was
then we'll
actually
get
gonna,
to Amy.
thank you. I was actually gonna answer the question that I think Amy posted in the message. We compiled those survey responses and we made a presentation to the board with those results, Amy. I think Scott had requested the raw data, and Scott might, you were thinking maybe, Scott, you might try to, compare it in some other way that we presented, but we had presented the results of those. There was, I think, 57 responses that were submitted, and we broke it down individually by each question on how many people actually responded to each question, and if they responded favorably, not favorably, or not at all, and kind of graphed it out that way. So there is information, there is a summary that we've submitted before, and I can get that to you again, Amy, that what was presented to the board. And I'm not sure, Scott, if Scott can follow up if he had done anything with that information.
Yeah, Dave, I did, thanks. So I went through, with Michelle's help, she provided all the feedback forms, and I actually went through all of them. And frankly, the summary and the way you guys classified them, I think is accurate. It accurately reflects the sentiment, what categories they fall in. I think obviously to regurgitate and retype them and put them back out there is more work than taking them in their original form. So I think the idea would be when we have the ability to post those and make those feedback forms public, I think that would be probably what the public's asking for. So the summary is great. I think it's accurate. And I think the underlying information and the way people have worded it and written it up, making that available in some sort of folder,
Okay.
along with the stickies and things like that we've gathered, is what the public has been asking for.
Okay.
So, but again, I think it's accurate.
I'll work with Michelle, and we'll create a link on the website that people can click and find the summary information that we prepared, as well as a copy of we can just scan them in as a PDF, and I'm not sure how we'll identify them, other than maybe 1, 2, and 3. But,
Right.
but yeah, we can get that call it raw data, onto the website.
In folders.
Right.
Yeah, maybe one big folder and just kind of say.
Yeah, I don't think you have to organize or sort it. I don't think,
I think one fold is
Yeah.
fine, just from that
Right.
event.
correct.
Okay. Well, that seems like that would probably satisfy a lot of folks.
And that compilation list should be in our minutes, should be public
Yeah, it's
record
been
in the minutes.
along in our minutes
Yeah,
over and over and over again
Uh-huh.
in different forms.
It was an attachment. I believe it's been uploaded. I don't remember the date of the meeting, but
Yeah.
it's up there.
Early
yes.
attachment. Amy, do you still have a question, or did Dave's answer? Okay.
No, and
Um,
thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else out there? No other hands? Okay. And thank you for joining us, Muriel, tonight. We have Muriel with us tonight. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, so moving on. So I think I'll ask Jamie to jump in here.
Sure.
Taking stuff a little bit out of order, but Jamie and I have been going back and forth on an interesting conversation that we've been having about a choice of verbiage in surrounding folks with different challenges. And I think we've come up with something that's workable.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a ton of great resources out there as far as finding ways to utilize words that can be inclusive and not disparaging to people. And so it is recommended to not use special needs or handicapped or afflicted by or suffers from, to avoid those labels. And I think that what the gist of the committee, the hope of the committee, is to create trails that are accessible for all ages and all abilities. And if we are speaking about a specific disability, we can say that and just talk about that. But some of the sugarcoating and trying to dance around terms can actually be really uncomfortable for folks who actually have disabilities. And so just planning our trail accessible for all ages, all abilities would cover everything. And then if we're speaking about physical disabilities or cognitive disabilities, we can talk about those things specifically.
So accessible for all ages and all abilities is what we came up with. And I really find that that's really comfortable.
Mhm.
Great, thank you.
And thank you for,
It's great. It's simple. And it
simple, easy to
includes-
understand,
That
easy to say,
includes everything.
no complicated language to remember.
That's great.
And welcoming. We want it to be,
Mhm.
we want it to be welcoming. Okay, so thank you for that, Jamie. So now we're going to move on to the working group's follow-up report. Scott, and Scott was good enough to do all of this work for us, and he has a PowerPoint, a couple of PowerPoints for us, and one was the working group update according to our FY 2023 goals, number 10. So take it away.
Sure. So, I distributed, to the, individual members to hoping to have one-on-one feedback, initially before we bring it to the public. So, I had sent, to each member, two PowerPoint decks. One was one that we've already reviewed and has been attached to minutes in the past on the 2nd of September, I believe, well, somewhere around there. Which is the outreach approach, to meet them where they are. So we've gone through that. The second deck, I asked for your feedback, hopefully before Thanksgiving, ideally, so I can collate it, revise it, and then bring it to the public next meeting. So give you about a week or so to give feedback. And that second deck is really meant to be the icebreaker. It's the introduction of our group. And intended to be just for the outreach for the liaisons or the leads or the point people for each of the community groups that are on our target list. So the deck would be used in a 15 to 30 minute phone call, Zoom call, or in person, whatever the person prefers. And the ask, you'll see in the deck, it is who we are, why we'd like to meet with them, what our ask is of the group. So pretty straightforward. So that's the goal. So we want to keep it pretty clean, pretty high level, and not get into the weeds with the individual and the lead of the group. So if you can give your feedback next week, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, great.
Get feedback to Scott before the next meeting, or hopefully.
Well,
next
hopefully
week.
next week, ideally before you guys have tryptophan in your bloodstream. And along those lines, if I may, because I can close out the next item real quickly. I have not received any other contacts or leads or any groups from you guys. So I'm taking that as it's iterative, so we can keep adding them as we go. But I'm taking that as sort of, we've settled on the initial target list. I've started to collate leads and go through Facebook groups and names and things like that. And then I'm going to start the outreach in terms of, hey, do you have a few minutes? Obviously pending you guys, your feedback and our sign off on the introductory deck, but that's my plan is. So next meeting, the plan is after Thanksgiving to start reaching out to people, as we discussed initially. The first 2 weeks of December is the goal to reach out to people, and then after the first of the year, because the holidays get pretty busy. So no plan to do anything, probably by January, hopefully mid-January, we get to all the groups initially, and then we start attending meetings, and by end of January, February, we have engaged people.
Through the chair, by requesting that we send comments and feedback and whatnot to you directly, that seems to me to kind of preclude an open table discussion, which I think would be appropriate to have here and now, look at the PowerPoint, look at, all that stuff. It doesn't quite feel right to have you and Eric or, me and you. So, any
Yeah.
thoughts on
Yeah, I
that and
definitely have a
opening-
reaction.
Opening it up?
So I didn't clarify. What I meant was to collate the feedback
Mhm.
and bring the feedback to the group with the deck.
Uh-huh.
And then we discuss it and then propose and finalize changes to the draft.
I see.
But rather than having it opening up and you guys, I gave it to you late also, having you guys look at it for the first time and us chew on it in public. And I thought you could look at it, settle on it. I can collate the feedback, refine it and
Mhm.
save ourselves some time.
Okay,
So
because
that's
it
the process.
just-
proposed.
Thank you. I get it. Just the fact checking, didn't this group, wasn't it initiated in 2012? I think it says 2017. So we just need to be,
To go through the fine test. because I-
yeah. because,
I'll have to go back.
well, that's the thing. I may not know.
17.
Well, you know what? I got a reaction and someone read the deck. Thank you.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for
I
sure.
That was
It's
just a text.
wonderful. It's just really good that you did that. And then,
yeah.
the way, I can't recall, I didn't print it. I'm in the basement with my office and the printers. Second floor, I was too lazy to print it today. But I wanted to be able to touch base with the group because I always need to make sure I'm not way off track. But it says something like our mission, what we're here to
That might
do.
be in the first one.
The first
There's
slide.
two different,
Is that the
there's
first?
two different packets. You might-
Exactly. I think I'm looking at
I think you're looking at the second one.
the new one. Yeah. That's the new one. Yeah, I think I want the one that came out today, I think, is what I want. But in
Now, that
any
would be-
event,
Then you have
it
that.
said sort of the mission is to evaluate alternatives and make recommendations to the board, et cetera, et cetera. And if alternatives, I'm just confused by that because alternatives are part of what we do kind of every day, every year. You know, it's not starting today that we're looking at alternatives. So I was just confused by the language.
Yeah, I took it from our goals,
Is-
but again, please, no pride in authorship. Absolutely. You could put comments in a Word document, put them in an email, say refer to slides, whatever format you're comfortable, take a picture with your cell phone, text it to me, whatever you want. And I'll collate those in a list. I'll bring them back to the meeting and I'll say for slide 1, this is the feedback. What do you guys think? Slide 2,
Yes, all
next 4
good.
Slides.
All good. And what I'm working out with you, Scott, as newly working together is I think that I like whole group discussions where people are throwing things around. It's rather messy. And I think you work in a different way that ends up at a great conclusion for sure. But
Will work definitely for sure. Yeah,
course.
I thrive in group settings as well, brainstorming, but I also thrive in,
will we get together, making some
people's time is
organizing?
precious. So I try to put more on me than the group, honestly.
Thank you.
Could be.
This to me is important to be able to
Yeah,
talk.
no, and I agree
Thank
with,
you.
I see both points of view. But to Cynthia's point, I was starting to write down notes because, and I did get it late. My apologies for not picking it up earlier. But I think that the group would benefit from a group.
Group dynamic, yeah.
And because I might say something and it might spur another person's thought. So it could be that we have a discussion and then we collate them.
That's fine. You want to just wait for the next meeting and discuss it, people just review it. I'm totally make, notes or whatever. I'm totally fine with that.
I'm using,
Way mentioned it as the most efficient. Then we can
Yes.
have a group discussion.
Right? That's,
yes.
I guess you and I operate the same, but
Yeah.
it's up to the group and how I want to do it. It saves me time if I don't do anything for 2 weeks and you guys come back and tell me, or if you want to send it. So we can do it both ways or whatever you prefer. Again, through the chair, whatever you'd like. It's, I'm comfortable either approach.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I thrive in
appreciate the
dynamic,
discussion.
and in no way am I ever going to make any,
How about if we, probably a lot of folks haven't had a chance to really look at this, the documents.
Here.
So how about if we go home and kind of look it over and think about it? Send some comments to Scott and then maybe we could bring them back and then follow
Agreed.
up with the group discussion.
Thanks.
So we
Great.
could
Perfect.
do both ways. And
I
thank you.
just like meetings that go on
Lot
to
of
10,
work.
10:30, 11.
No,
Thank
and
you.
I think that would save a lot of time.
Okay, what else we got?
Okay,
Scott, you didn't cover item A, small I, the conversations with IT in regard
oh,
to.
that's right. This is also quick.
yeah,
Cool like that. It's quick, right? So I think it's through Michelle or someone, connected me up with, Josh Grissetti, head of IT. Because as I've talked amongst different members here in the committee, in the public, our website is better than most, but not as good as it needs to be. So I reached out to Josh to see if he could help build some links and bring things higher up. So it's 1 or 2 clicks for the public to get the things. And he said the timing is great. They're going through a website redesign. Not every committee needs to do their own pages or website, but if we desire to do so, we can give him and them our feedback. And after the first of the year, they can build it out for us. So if the committee agrees, I don't mind. I kind of do this for a living anyways, to an extent, in software and technology. I'm happy to wireframe, they call it wireframe, just build a skeleton of a couple pages, send it out to the group for feedback. We don't want to over-engineer it. We want to keep it simple.
Mhm.
And then maybe just have a 1 or 2 page website for the committee, and then the town will build it for us. It's part of their budget and they're planning on it, so.
So Scott, is this the HuffingtonUpperCharles.org website, or is this the town?
It's the town.
Huffington,
It's
Mass?
the town.
The town is doing a complete redesign of the website,
Uh-huh.
and
So the other ones,
they're giving the option to committees to have their own area.
Mhm. Yeah.
Not every committee, in fact, a lot of committees, it sounds like, aren't vying for that.
Mhm.
But because we gave some outreach, he'd say they'd be happy to do it. He's pretty excited about it. So I think it could be a win-win.
I think.
Yep,
we're more
that's
than
great.
happy to Get that.
Do a little cleanup and some of the
Yeah.
documents and folders we're talking about, make them right available on our front page or what.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
the new website will help because the current one has a pretty rigid format of
Right.
how you can fit stuff. on
Right,
it.
right. And that's
So
why I
think
originally
that
reached out to him. It's pretty rigid.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a lot more flexible or a lot easier to use. So that's the update. So if you guys are on board with it, it's probably a January, February type of thing.
Great. Okay, that's great. It's all really, really good stuff.
I was serving as the webmaster for the old website. I guess I'm out of a job now.
Yes.
Not yet. Don't give up yet. And you can take over the new one.
Yes. Because it will need updating.
Cutting edge, Eli. It'll be on the cutting edge.
Okay,
Yeah, content from the old website, some of the content to the new. one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll have to migrate content as well.
Yeah.
Sure. Like all the content.
We did do some. that
Yes,
we could.
they're in the process. Sorry, yes, maybe they're doing it.
I was looking
That's the
at
first step.
that site
It's a migrate
today.
Content that we design.
Speak to that.
the old website was put together by my predecessor, and he had a friend host it, and it was not an ideal situation, so moving the content over to the town is, for me, a very positive outcome.
Well, this is all really good stuff. Okay, the next one is 4B, report on the outcome from the CPC meeting from November 10. And Eric was there as well, so I'm going to let him take the ball on that one.
Well, I think as far as we're concerned, the thing that was discussed and settled at that meeting, the town has a very rigid schedule for projects, so that they go through a process, they go into funding and what have you. And it is chaotic if there are late submissions for the project. We are unique in that many of our submissions are late because an opportunity arrives to buy property or something late. So the CPC has always made an exception that if it's a purchase of property, that it can be submitted when it happens, as opposed to a October date. Well, that went real well, except that 3 committees have submitted late projects, of which we're one of the committees. And the CPC had a conversation about whether that should be allowed. And what it boiled down to was that, in my opinion, it won't be tolerated after this year. But the 3 that were late were voted to be considered. And they'll be talked about it at our meeting tomorrow night. But the bottom line is that our submission for the
Upper Charles Trail,
for the upper part of Upper Charles Trail
segment one.
one will be considered tomorrow night, as will one from the Trails Club and one from Parks and Rec. So, it was voted and it's where we are.
Excuse me? Yeah, good, sure. So Eric, will someone from our group, I know, obviously the liaison, okay, so Jane's gonna represent it. Okay, thanks.
Yes, but we're all welcome to come. Or Zoom in, I think you can click on Zoom as well.
Yeah, CPC is Zoom, so you can watch it from home.
Eric, does that mean that the three committees will have the same standing as the others who got?
They'll
this?
be considered as normal and there'll be no vendettas or
Preferences.
anything.
Well, no punishment for.
Well, there'll be
submitting late.
punishment, but we won't tell people what it is.
We've all been put on notice that this cannot happen again.
They were always.
Just
pretty strict.
Living through it the last week, you don't want to go through it again. But anyway, that was the highlight of that meeting. Those three things will be discussed tomorrow night, or the presentations. All the other ones had been made. And these three will be the star of the show tomorrow.
And decisions evolve.
No decisions. They won't be voted on tomorrow. They'll be presented.
Mhm.
That'll happen later on in the process.
Okay, thank you.
We'll all have to stay tuned, Sin.
I couldn't find CPC on TV. Mr. Matt?
Wasn't on TV.
No, it's,
HCAM? It wasn't, but
I don't think they take.
don't they record? They don't take?
Recorded.
No.
yeah.
I would think it has to be recorded.
It's recorded, trust me.
Yeah,
The Zoom should be recorded.
Yeah.
yeah, I couldn't,
Doesn't mean.
live time, I wasn't able to find it anywhere.
sometimes it goes to YouTube.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't make it to HCAM.
Yeah, assessment.
It goes to HCAM's YouTube channel.
If HCAM wants it, it could be provided to HCAM.
CPC
Saw it
just
first
isn't
right now.
important enough, I guess.
I guess the real question is, how can somebody access it if they want? to?
Yes, I wanted to, and I couldn't find it.
Maybe able to post the recording to the calendar listing.
That would be
I'll get
great,
that.
actually. Thank you.
Okay, good question. Thank you. Okay, liaison reports. Does anyone have anything before I go first?
I can,
Eric? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, I'm leading a hike on Saturday. I think it's at 10 a.m., but it's posted at the Hopkins Trails Club website. The reason it's relevant for us is it's gonna be, we're gonna meet starting at the parking lot where the gas line crosses Legacy Farms North. And the plan is to basically go close to the Tennessee Gas, head down Rafferty, or what used to be Rafferty, towards Bay Path, and then head back along the lake and then come back up from the dam area, sort of where,
You mean how?
uh,
Yeah, you mean how? You're gonna go down the Tennessee gas line, head toward Howe, and then over to the dam?
no, we're gonna go all the way down to 85, just about, down the sidewalk on Rafferty.
Oh,
We're gonna
Like, and where that canoe
go on the
access.
sidewalk. But the reason for doing that is that way, we have a nice trail right along the south side of Hopkins Reservoir. through the
yes, we
woods.
do.
And then back from the dam area, and on the, it's not that close to where the Upper Charles is gonna build the trail because of development by,
But it's a very nice.
but it's a nice trail and it's open right now. Chuck Dalchi clobbered the weeds so that it's easily passable. And it's just a nice area to see. And it's close to where, somewhat close to where the Upper Charles Trail will go. On that little section.
Shouting distance.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least part of it.
Oh, thank you.
That's Saturday.
Yes.
Eric, did you have anything? I thought I saw your hand.
Only that, we should realize that the, town manager's office does a great job for us in CPC by negotiating all these things we want to buy. This year is especially heavy amount of purchases, not necessarily for us, but for the town. And that's just like having a full workload and then somebody dumping a new, truck on top of you. So I just want to go on record as saying they do a heck of a job, and Elaine and Norman are awesome.
Well, thank you. That kind of leads me into open space because I think we're responsible for.
Yes, it's your.
Handing, yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
The commission requested a lot of various properties just to be negotiated, whether they come to fruition or not. Nobody knows, but to your point, that's an immense amount of work for the town.
It's all
manager's office.
dumped on a department that is,
Already stressed.
24/7 already.
Oh, it's open space now. The other one is the planning board. One of the subcommittees has further taken on the trails and pedestrian study a couple steps further and looking at next steps and kind of dissecting the information that we got from the previous survey and seeing where we can go with that next so that we can have another logical plan going forward to present to the town. So that is ongoing as we speak. That's another exciting piece of, progress that all of the committees and towns are working for as far as developing open space and trails and connectivity. And there seems to be a common interest and a common theme in that, a lot of interest.
So in that regard, there's gonna be some outside money coming in from the state to possibly pursue some sidewalk projects, is that right? So,
The planning board has presented to the what committee was it? In town, they proposed an article, a warrant article to
Sounds like DPW.
Construct sidewalks.
yes, to construct sidewalks. And it's going to go through capital expense, capital means. And one is for $450,000 and the other one is for like $300,000. And one would be for engineering and construction of sidewalks along Chestnut Street in a certain area, I think from Blueberry Lane all the way up to the new development. Well, it's not a new development anymore. The second one is for, what the heck? Another important piece of town that a lot of people showed interest in having a sidewalk. Chestnut. Yes, thank you. Well, that was the one I mentioned on Chestnut Street from Blueberry
yeah, that.
Blueberry doesn't touch Chestnut.
all the way
One from EMC Park.
EMC Park to Blueberry. That, there you go.
Yeah, I was like, Blueberry doesn't touch Chestnut.
Thank you.
Well, it's definitely not the topic. You're on the topic, so I'm going to raise it. Every day, 3 to 3:30, I don't know if you guys have been out near CVS. There's swarms of middle schoolers walking on the grass on the west side through people's yards on that little, well, maybe it's like, technically four city blocks, whatever stretch. You guys see that? Isn't that crazy? We have to have a sidewalk there. They're not crossing the street. They're staying. And now that it's dark, you almost hit these people because they're on the other road. So I don't know who I should be telling, but
Well-
maybe it helps that there's a couple members that are listening in, but
Pleasant Street to the,
yeah, it's about Pleasant Street. People walk through the yards there. You guys are nodding your heads, for stretches.
It's a Pleasant Street.
It's along Hayden Road.
About?
I'm talking about Hayden Row. On Hayden Row, they walk to
Street
CVS.
To Main.
CVS is the gathering spot for every middle school. So if you need a prescription, don't go there after school.
I think you mean Grove Street.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about Hayden Row, right along Hayden Row.
Oh, yeah, it is Grove. It turns into
Oh,
Grove.
sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Hayden Row, Bear.
And there are
Yeah.
sidewalks
You're
there.
okay. I'm a
Other side,
new.
other, on the east
If it
side.
doesn't turn, it doesn't change. No, you're right. It's Grove Street. Thank you. Correct.
Yeah, the sidewalks are on the east side. They're
The
walking
record
west
show, I
side.
knew what you were talking about.
I know. Well, everybody was nodding, so I figured I'd
Well-
been saying something, right? But that would be, I mean, it's not only sensible, it's needed, because I'm telling you, the other day I was getting a prescription. It was really, it's the dark now. And there are kids just really like almost balancing right on the curb. And it's grass, so.
We can certainly bring.
So if someone can raise that, or if you need me to raise it to someone, but that is definitely a safety hazard right now. Or make them cross the darn road to the sidewalk.
Planning.
But they want to go to CVS. That's the gathering spot.
And they do not want to walk down to the light.
No,
Right.
no,
They don't want to cross and then have to cross again.
yeah.
Well, they have to cross
Oh, that
twice.
might be the next.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
And there again, it's gonna be right of ways, engineering and figuring out how.
right.
much-
It's not a long stretch and they just,
but it's
we just obviously did the CVS component of it.
Yeah.
And we have it down towards the high school. It's just joining us.
And I think,
Sidewalks are extraordinarily expensive.
well, that's why the planning board decided to go through, capital expense.
Not as costly as safety.
No, I don't disagree with that.
Mhm.
I know.
It's a must.
Put the one in on Hayden Road from school down to Chestnut.
Yeah.
And back then it cost us $400,000.
Well,
That's
Small potatoes now.
That's on the east side.
This is really good and speaks again to connectivity and
Mhm.
safety.
Right,
and
right.
to-
Great time for it
It's
to come
the-
up.
It's a common theme that keeps coming up in more and more committees.
yeah, you can put a sidewalk, but it doesn't mean that it's going to change people's habits. The sidewalk is on the east side.
There's sidewalks in Charlesview and not one person walks on them.
They walk
They
in
all
the
walk in the
street.
street.
Because there's
There's water,
potholes,
there's water.
standing water and ice in the potholes. Haven't fixed the darn
It's
sidewalks.
called-
We walked there with our
Called
baby.
maintenance.
That's Daniel's.
And I don't know if there's maintenance budget.
I don't disagree, but
Yeah, no, that's the problem with having pavement. Oh, and.
Well, I think we are getting off topic,
very
but I,
Okay.
it's a really good
I don't mind it.
common sense theme that we're talking about, and when appropriate, we should.
to make a motion, we approve the minutes of October 19th as written.
Second.
Everyone get a chance to read them. I thought they were very well done.
Mhm. Beautiful.
I agree.
Mhm.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? All in favor? Passed unanimously. All right, so before we go on any further, I would like to get some suggestions for our next meeting, and I think we have one, and that would be a follow-up for the CPC meeting. Yep, and the
In
PowerPoint.
the PowerPoint, yeah.
And the segment 1 verse 6, I don't know if it's called scope of work, but the comment that Peter brought up that Dave said he'd follow up on.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah,
That's good.
then it would be Dave Filtorian. Six. On the. I can see specific, oh, he was looking for costs. Analysis, I think is what he was looking for.
Had we determined a next meeting, Jane?
Number, right? First Wednesday?
First and
First
third
Wednesday,
of the month.
first,
No.
third,
Wednesday.
So
so.
the
any other-
7th and the 21st,
for-
we're back on
Yes.
our routine.
Any other suggestions for,
Beautiful.
oh, I think they were also going to, Michelle and Dave were gonna follow up on the questionnaires, the outreach, public outreach, continued discussion.
Yeah, you need some of the stuff that we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, suppose any changes that actually successfully happen to our website.
Yeah. certainly.
I thought you said January.
Oh, no, yeah. it's-
February.
Too soon. Yeah, definitely too soon. I'll reach back out to Josh, but he and I agreed to talk in December,
Okay.
after this.
Jane, before we conclude, should we touch base on the time of our meetings? Just a question
Yes.
came up before we got
Can I add one more
rolling.
thing to the agenda?
Sure,
Propose, I
sure.
should say. Matt was, last couple of meetings, Matt was gonna give a date for a date. I don't remember exactly for what.
A date.
VHB. There was something about the plan. He was creating a project plan or timing for coming back to us with some initial results or something, wasn't it?
I have to go through my notes.
Oh, I'll have to go through the notes. I apologize. I don't have that great a memory, but there's last two meetings, he was supposed to come back with a date, and the last meeting, he said he'd come back with a date for a date, but then we didn't have the meeting, so.
Is that a schedule for work?
I think it's a schedule for work meeting, but I'd have to go back. We'd have to go back 2 meetings.
So schedule for work, probably. for
On the
either-
engineering.
Probably segment 6.
I think it was segment 6 plan, basically a plan for,
Yeah, because I
Milestone- I think it was a
some work has
milestone
already
plan.
Started.
yeah, it was basically a milestone plan he was gonna come back with, I think, but
Yeah,
again, I don't.
so that's why I get confused with some of this conversation, looking at it, because some of that work has already started.
Well, yeah, but I think he was just, a couple meetings ago, he said he was gonna come back with some key dates, and I don't recall exactly what.
All right, so I can reach out to him. I'm sure he'll remember. Okay. And anything else for next agenda items for discussion? I'm sure
Not here.
other stuff will come up. Don't be shy about,
That's why we have a chairman and that's.
yeah. Well, it's definitely a work in progress. There was a comment about should we go back to the 5 PM meetings, or do you want to keep it at 7? And I'll go around the table. Eric,
The
Well,
reason,
5 is more comfortable when you don't have a day job. At one point, I chaired at the DPW Advisory Committee. We met at 7 o'clock in the morning. And we did it because we wanted the guys to work and not keep them, the DPW people, not keep them late into an evening meeting. So we met at 7 in the morning. So there's nothing really to prevent us from having it whenever we think it's best for our committee. But if you had a day job, I don't know how you make a 5 o'clock meeting. So I'm not anchored in whatever we want to do.
okay, Sin,
well, I think given that at least Jamie, you have a young child too. I mean, I don't see how it would be feasible to come early. So, I'm game for anything, but I do like to go to bed at 7:30. Just kidding. I'm almost there, but not quite. So for whatever works for the group, it's fine. It's fine with me.
Yeah, 7 is
Jamie?
definitely, 7 is better. I work a full-time job and then I'm feeding my 3 kids before coming here and
Probably a
missing
struggle to get
bedtime
here.
and giving them hugs
Mm.
and getting out the door. So I was here a little bit before 7 tonight and that was a big improvement.
One less hug.
Yeah. Only 5 hugs this time per child.
a
The
little.
thing about 7 is most of us have had time for dinner before that, so we're not all
Yep.
starving.
Eli.
To bed.
I prefer an earlier time, but I yield to those who have family obligations and work obligations that they can't make it.
Scott.
I have a standing 5 o'clock meeting at work,
Oh,
but it's a Zoom, and I have an office in Burlington, so that could be, but it doesn't mean
Let's put
forget
it in
it.
the corner and you could.
Doesn't mean forget it, because honestly,
split screen.
sometimes I have more fun here, sometimes. But yeah, I would ask for 6 or later.
Bob, do you have any strong feelings one way or the other?
Truthfully, I don't.
Okay, thank you for your honesty. Ken,
I'm pretty flexible, but I'm quite willing to for it to be 7, if that makes it easier for anybody else.
I,
Through the chair, I know it's tough. Jamie had already said someone might be going against her, but maybe we could every other or something like that. If we planned ahead, maybe one's at 6 and one's at 7, or I don't know, Jamie, if that you could alternate, because I handed it off to my wife too, but, or if you're going to be mad at me for that, but I toss that out.
okay, so thank you for that. I actually prefer 7 too because of my personal other life that I have. With all of my animals in my mountain barn till about 6:45, so I just about make it here. I feel your pain. I'm not kissing them and hugging them, but,
Oh, maybe they should be kissed and hugged.
but also, I also recognize the request just from the general public that there's still a feeling that folks want to and appreciate hearing from us for the next
So-
near future. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna make,
So it's easier for the residents and the
Yes.
public to be able to tune in at
Yeah.
7 because of the,
because a lot
because
of
of
people
life.
there are out still working jobs.
Madam Chair, a motion. I make a motion that we have our meetings at 7 o'clock.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You can ride, I can drive you.
We have enough money in the budget to buy Eli coffee.
And I make,
But an Uber,
I make another motion that we adjourn.
second,
Second, yeah,
okay, good meeting, everybody.
all in favor?
Great,
Good meeting.
thank you, Elaine, thank you, Michelle, thank you, Dave.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Welcome. Have a good night.